Hey there, MrQuora here. Welcome to another episode of Did You Always Wanted to Know? In today's video we will get to know some amazing stories of wisdom, shared by a few people with me. Sounds interesting, isn't it? So why don't you go ahead and smash that like button, to encourage me to keep bringing such interesting videos for you. By the way, if you are new to this channel, please click that subscribe button, and do not forget to also click that bell icon as well, to get notifications of all our upcoming videos. Oh, by the way, if you subscribe to this channel and write subscribed in the comments below, I will give you a shout out, in one of my next videos. Now it is time to get started then. Number 1. This is a story I received from an anonymous person and I will describe it here just as he said. My granddad used to tell me this story each time he saw something weird and he felt compelled to speak up. On the other hand, to avoid to get angry or to get into a fight, he used to get into arguments quite often. He would tell this story aloud as a sort of mantra. I don't know where and from whom he heard it, but I always found it amazing. One day, after dying, a man was sent to heaven. As soon as the doors of heaven opened in front of him, he met this old figure, which was God. The man was about to enter, when God stopped him and said, "You are allowed to enter in heaven at one condition. Anything weird you see or hear you will not speak up." That's it. Fine, thought the man, what could be so weird to make me want to speak up? I mean, I am in paradise, so he entered in this amazing place where everything was perfect. One day though, he was walking through the streets of Paradise Land when he saw a group of angels carrying a ladder. Apparently they were supposed to enter that ladder into a building's door. The man stopped to observe this group of angels. At the end of the day, the man had the eternity in front of him, plus he never saw angels before. Therefore, he was curious to see them in action. The man noted a weird thing. Instead of making the ladder go through the building's door by putting it in a perpendicular position, toward the entry, the angels were trying to fit it horizontally. The man was struck by that silliness. On the other hand, his mind wandered back to God's words, "Anything weird you see or hear you will not speak up," so the man continued to see the action passively. He in fact believed that the angels eventually would have figured it out. At the end of the day, any person with an average intelligence would have. Yet those angels tried dozens of times unsuccessfully. One of the angels took few steps toward the group and exclaimed, "I have an idea." Here we go, the man thought, he must have figured it out. Therefore, the angel continued, "We will tear the first floor of the building down so that our ladder will fit in." All the angels, surprised, almost like their colleague had given them the relativity formula, agreed. When the man saw those angels starting to tear the first floor down, he was shocked. He tried to shut up, but he couldn't. The level of idiocy of the angels was too much for him. Hence he exclaimed, "You bunch of idiots, don't you see that to fit the ladder into the door all you had to do is to fit it perpendicularly?" The angels didn't understand a word of what the man said. On the other hand, God intervened. Pissed off by the man, God sent him to hell. Moral of the story, I think there are many meanings here. For my granddad, as I said, this was a way to purge his anger before it was too late. He used to get mad quite often. Thus, instead of counting up to 10, he would use the story as a way to calm down. Yet, I also think this story gives other lessons. First, if you want to be happy in some way, you must ignore certain things. For instance, the man stopped to watch the angels in action, when he could have not. Second, what the man thought was extremely silly, it was not for the angels. I mean, the man was not on earth anymore, therefore the rules he knew did not apply in heaven. For instance, when the angels tried to fit the ladder in the building by tearing it down, for them it was normal. In paradise, things are not done with the logic of efficiency. On earth we have limited resources. Hence, that way of thinking is implied in our human brain. On the other hand, in paradise resources must be unlimited. So who cares if you tear a building down to fit a ladder when there is no scarcity of money, time, resources and so on. That's why the angels didn't understand what the man meant. Third, often authority, God in our story, wants us to shut up. In exchange it offers us paradise. Yet paradise is not so when you have no right to speak up. Actually, that is already hell. In fact, the man prefers to go to hell rather than live in a place where idiocy reigns and freedom of speech does not exist. Number 2. This is a story I received from another anonymous person and I will describe it here just as he said. When Lebanon was under the French Mandate 1923–1946, few French soldiers were living next to my granddad's house and barber shop. They used to go there and get a hair cut by my grandpa, and they became good friends during the Mandate, since he used to see them every day. The French left the country in 1946 and my grandpa got married years later and had 5 children. This happened almost 17 years later, when my mom was 6. They were all sitting in my grandpa's old barber shop, and a guy enters the door asking for my grandpa in French. He turned out to be the son of one of the French soldiers who became friends with grandpa during the Mandate. The soldier couldn't travel to Lebanon since he was a bit old at that time, so he gave the address to his son and told him to go there, and take a picture with my grandfather so he could see it when he comes back to France. Everyone was so glad meeting the French guy, especially my grandpa, and they all took a picture with him. He came back home with a photograph of him, my grandparents and their kids, including my mom. It was so unexpected and beautiful. Number 3. One more story I received from another anonymous person and I will describe it here just as he said. My grandfather's uncles wanted to escape Ottoman's occupation in Lebanon, so they decided to immigrate to Brazil. My grandfather never knew them because he wasn't born yet. It happened in the year 1900 I think, and it was very hard to communicate with people living in another country back in the days, so they didn't hear anything from them and never got in contact. 107 years later, in 2007, my mom's cousin was sitting in the plane next to a woman from Brazil. They started talking and getting to know each other more and more during the flight, and she turned out to be a Brazilian woman from Lebanese descent, and her family name is the same as my grandfather's. At the end, they figured out that she is related and her dad is my grandfather's cousin whose dad immigrated to Brazil during Ottoman's occupation. They both exchanged stories about the families since they both didn't get in touch with the other for a decade. The world is just so small. I will never forget those 2 stories that my grandparents and mom told me. They are just so fascinating and weird. Number 4. Second last I received from another anonymous person and I will describe it here just as he said. My father was adopted into a Jewish family when he was just days old. No information about his biological parents was given, nothing. He simply got a new start. As it turned out, none in his adopted family were very religious. Sure, they went to synagogue for high holidays, celebrated Hanukkah and Passover, and sent my father to Hebrew school, but those were the basics that all Jewish families did in those days. Nevertheless, my father decided to become a rabbi. He just felt a calling he couldn't explain. Of course, it was a bit strange. Nobody in his adopted family had ever had a desire to join the religious profession. But you know, it's life, and people choose their own paths. Fast forward 5 decades, my father finds some old documents that uncover the mystery of his biological parents. Then he begins his assiduous research on the website Ancestry to learn more about his family tree. He calls me weeks later, "Dan, I have some interesting news for you." "What's that, Dad?" "Going back 7 generations, so think pre-Revolutionary War, almost all the men in my biological family, they were pastors. Number 5. The last story I received from another anonymous person and I will describe it here just as he said. My grandmother was an amazing woman. She was born in pre-independence days in India and didn't receive formal education after primary school, but she was great with math and had a business mind. She was very wise, active and took major decisions in our family. She gave good education to all her kids, and that's the reason that my dad and my paternal aunts are doing so well in their lives. She inherited a lot of farms from her parents and took care of it while my grandfather was away from home serving the Indian Army. I remember very well, it was 3 years back when she suffered a brain hemorrhage and suddenly fell down in the backyard of our ancestral house. She was bedridden for the next 1 year and could never walk again. Slowly she started losing her memory and couldn't recognize us properly. On one such days I took off from work and was sitting next to her bed. She was staring at me blankly. I was sure she was not recognizing me, but then she said, "Shika, why are you sitting here? Shouldn't you be studying right now?" Not just did she recognize me, but she also thought of me as young school-going Shika who should study hard and achieve great things in life. I will never forget that moment. We lost her few weeks after that, but when I have kids I will tell it to them that how her great-grandmother, who wasn't very highly educated herself, even in her last days knew the value of education and wanted us to be successful in lives. Interesting stories, weren't they? Well, that's all for today's video. If you liked today's video, then please like and share this video. Also, if you are new to this channel, then please consider subscribing to watch similar videos in future. Thanks for watching today. So until my next video, take care, stay safe and goodbye.